Ryan Blake. Once a dedicated rescue officer. Now a mechanic, distanced from the sea and haunted by his past, living quietly in a small town. Years ago, a storm shattered his life. The lives he couldn't save drove him away from his career and from himself. But life has a way of forcing you to start over. And now, another storm is about to change Ryan's fate once again. Sometimes, a second chance is the greatest rescue of all. Ryan Blake was 35, a man with a will as strong as the relentless ocean winds. But beneath that tough exterior lay a soul scarred by the past. 10 years ago, he had been at the peak of his career as a Coast Guard rescue officer. Known for his quick decision-making and fearless approach to danger, he was highly respected. Everything changed, though, after a tragic accident during a storm. He lost a fellow crew member and a family they were trying to save. That day broke something inside him. The guilt consumed him, and he could never be the same again. Ryan left his job and moved to a small coastal town, hoping to rebuild his life. In this quiet town, he tried to find a new path. He took care of boats at the harbor and developed friendly relationships with the local fishermen. People liked him but didn't know much about his past. Ryan sought a peaceful life here, yet at night, his mind was haunted by memories he couldn't escape. Ryan Blake was busy with the boats at the harbor, just like any other day. He was checking chains, securing ropes, and making sure everything was safe. Years spent by the sea had shaped him into a quiet, observant man. People didn't talk much about him, but they trusted him. His silence and dedication to his work brought a sense of balance to the town. Everyone knew that when it came to the harbor's operations, Ryan was always a calm and steady leader. That morning, a light mist hung over the sea. The wind shifted direction, and dark clouds began to gather on the horizon. Ryan immediately recognized the signs of an approaching storm. The sea had warned and tested him many times before, and he had learned to always stay alert. However, something else caught his attention, a stranger approaching the harbor. The woman didn't look like a local. It was clear she was from the city. Ryan narrowed his eyes slightly as he watched her. New faces were rare here, and any outsider who arrived usually didn't go unnoticed for long. The woman looked around as she walked but didn't blend into the crowd. Instead, she made her way directly to the center of the harbor with confident steps. Ryan sensed this wasn't just an ordinary visit. The woman approached him. "Hello," she greeted, her voice polite yet self-assured. "My name is Emily Harrington. I'm here to work on a project." Ryan's eyes widened slightly for a moment before returning to their usual serious gaze. The name Harrington rang a bell. It was the same name as the man who had started an investment project here years ago. He gave a small nod. "Harrington, your father worked on a project here. I've heard people mention some unfinished business," he said calmly. Emily continued. "Yes, my father started a coastal conservation and tourism development project. Now it's my responsibility to take over. But first, I want to meet the locals and understand their concerns." Ryan's expression hardened slightly. The townspeople had always been wary of outside projects. This place valued its traditions and harmony with the sea. Major changes were rarely welcomed. "People here don't like anyone messing with the balance of the sea and their way of life," he replied in a flat tone. Emily listened carefully and took a moment to think. "I understand that. I don't want to disrupt the rhythm of life here. That's why I need advice from experienced people like you," she said sincerely. Ryan didn't reply right away. Instead, he glanced out at the sea. The clouds on the horizon were more pronounced now. The storm was approaching fast. His jaw tightened slightly. "There's a storm coming," he muttered. Emily followed his gaze. "Really? It's developing that quickly?" she asked. Ryan nodded slightly. "Storms around here come out of nowhere. The sea plays by its own rules. I'll warn everyone. You should find shelter," he said, raising his voice to call out to the others to secure the boats. Emily took his warning seriously and quickly made her way out of the harbor. But Ryan had a feeling he hadn't seen the last of her. Every outsider who came to this town had the potential to stir up shadows from the past. He knew this storm wasn't just about the weather, it was the beginning of a new storm in his life. The storm was closing in on the town. The sky had turned a dark, leaden gray, and the wind was picking up speed. Ryan was trying to keep the crowd at the harbor calm while getting more details from the man beside him. "A small tourist boat left for the island early this morning," the man explained. "But the storm came on faster than expected. They haven't made it back yet." Ryan took a deep breath. The rocky areas around the island could be deadly in this weather. His mind quickly mapped out a plan as he turned to the others and began issuing orders. "Prepare the emergency rescue boat. I'm going out there, he commanded. Hearing this, Emily stepped forward with determination. I want to go with you, she said firmly. Ryan noticed the seriousness in her eyes but shook his head. Emily, the conditions out there are too dangerous. The sea can turn on you in an instant. You can help more by staying here, he explained. Emily hesitated for a moment, then nodded. You're right. What can I do from here? She asked. Ryan pointed to the radio. Stay in contact with us. Also, notify the town sheriff. They need to know we have the situation under control. Emily immediately got to work, pulling out her phone to contact the sheriff. Ethan, it's serious. A group of tourists is stranded on the island because of the storm. Ryan and his team are heading out for a rescue, she said into the phone. Sheriff Ethan's tone became serious. Got it, Emily. We'll tighten security before the storm worsens. Stay at the harbor and keep communication open, he replied. As Ryan headed toward the boat, he saw Emily picking up the radio. Be careful, she said with a hint of concern in her voice. Ryan gave her a small nod in response. The rescue boat was soon ready. Ryan started the engine and the boat began cutting through the waves. The town's lights faded in the distance as the sea grew more turbulent. The wind howled, stinging their faces, while waves crashed against the boat with relentless force. Ryan grabbed the radio and spoke to Emily. We're heading toward the east side of the island. The storm's intensifying. Emily's voice came through after a short pause. Got it? The sheriff's been updated. Keep your speed in check and contact us when you reach a safe position. Understood, Ryan replied before focusing back on the waters ahead. The waves were growing larger by the minute, but his mind was laser-focused now. The lives of those stranded on the island depended on this rescue. The shadows of his past mistakes loomed in the back of his mind, but he had to believe that this time would be different. The storm had completely engulfed the town. The sky and sea seemed to merge into one as the wind and waves clashed in a violent contest. Ryan's rescue boat was tossed around like a toy, each collision with the towering waves making it hard for the crew to stay on their feet. His eyes were fixed on the horizon. Every second counted now as they fought to reach the shore. Tom shouted over the deafening wind, "The waves are getting bigger. We need to control our speed or we'll hit the rocks." Ryan gripped the wheel tightly, his gaze darting toward the jagged rocks ahead. If we slow down, we'll lose control and get tossed around out here. Keep the engine steady, he commanded. As the island's dark silhouette came into view, Ryan spotted the wreckage of a boat near the shore. It was split in half, wedged against the rocks. Waves pounded the remains, tearing off pieces of wood and scattering them across the water. Damn it. That's their boat, Ryan muttered under his breath. Anyone on board? Tom asked urgently. I doubt it, but someone could have fallen overboard, Ryan replied, scanning the area quickly. Stay alert. If anyone's in the water, they won't last long in these conditions. As they approached the wreck, Ryan noticed a faint light flickering near a cabin on the shore. They're there, he thought. But in this weather, getting the boat close to land was a deadly gamble. He grabbed the radio and called out to Emily at the harbor. We've reached the shore. We've spotted a signal from the stranded group. We're going to. Before he could finish, a massive wave crashed into the boat, knocking him off balance. The radio slipped from his hand and tumbled overboard into the raging sea. Shit! Tom yelled, watching helplessly as the radio disappeared beneath the water. Ryan wasted no time regaining his grip on the wheel. We've lost the radio. We're on our own now. Focus up. Move fast, he shouted. Get the ropes ready. We can't get too close to the shore. If we hit the rocks, we're done. Tom and the other crew members quickly uncoiled the ropes and hurled the first one toward the shore. Someone on the rocks managed to grab it, but the relentless waves made it nearly impossible to secure the line. Anchor that rope down, Ryan shouted. You'll board the boat one at a time. No rushing. Stay steady and alert. The first group of survivors began using the rope to inch their way toward the boat. Each wave threatened to unbalance the boat and send them tumbling into the sea. Ryan kept a firm grip on the wheel, his eyes never leaving the waves. Come on. Move faster, he yelled. Just then, a giant wave crashed down on them. The boat tilted violently to one side, nearly capsizing. Ryan reacted quickly, spinning the wheel and pushing the engine to full power. The boat barely leveled out, but a few people clinging to the rope nearly slipped into the water. These waves are gonna tear us apart. Tom shouted in panic. Ryan's voice cut through the chaos, calm but resolute. Stay calm. If we panic, it's over. The boat rocked and groaned under the relentless assault of the storm, but Ryan refused to let up. His focus was absolute. Lives were in his hands, and no matter what, he was determined not to fail this time. The first group made it safely onto the boat, but the second group was still stranded on the rocks. The waves were growing even more violent. They threw the rope again, but this time one of the men missed it and slipped, tumbling down the rocks into the churning sea. "No!" Ryan shouted. The man was disappearing beneath the waves. Without wasting a second, Ryan made a split-second decision and called out to Tom, "Hold the wheel steady. I'm going in." "Are you crazy? That's suicide." Tom protested. "If we wait, he's going to drown." Ryan snapped and rushed to the side of the boat. He quickly tied a rope around his waist and leapt into the water. The icy water slammed into his body, knocking the breath out of him. The waves tossed him around like a rag doll, making it nearly impossible to see. Gritting his teeth, he forced his eyes open and caught sight of the man struggling to stay afloat. Ryan summoned all his strength and swam toward him. "Grab the rope!" Ryan shouted over the roar of the waves. The man heard his voice and reached out desperately. Ryan seized his arm and gripped it tightly. Together, they began the difficult task of swimming back to the boat, fighting against the relentless current. Every breath was a battle, the cold and waves sapping their strength with each passing second. Finally, Tom appeared at the edge of the boat, pulling hard on the rope. After what felt like an eternity, Ryan and the man were hauled onto the deck, collapsing in exhaustion. "Damn it, Ryan. We almost lost you out there." Tom gasped, still trying to catch his breath. Ryan took a deep breath and gave a firm nod. "But we got him," he said. "Now we need to get out of here." Once all the tourists and crew were safely aboard, Ryan gripped the wheel firmly. "Everyone hold on tight. We're heading back to the harbor," he announced. The engine roared to life, fighting to drown out the relentless howling of the wind. The sea was still treacherous, but the lights of the harbor finally appeared on the horizon. The waves began to subside, though the storm wasn't completely over. Ryan kept his focus, steering the boat steadily through the remaining swells, guiding them safely toward the harbor. Meanwhile, the townspeople had gathered at the dock, their eyes scanning the dark waters. Suddenly, a beam of light from the approaching boat pierced the darkness. Emily's eyes lit up as she shouted, "There they are!" As Ryan and his crew drew closer, the crowd erupted into cheers and applause. Emily rushed toward Ryan the moment he stepped off the boat. "We were so worried when we couldn't reach you," she said, her face a mix of relief and joy. Ryan gave her a faint smile. The radio fell into the water. "But everyone's safe, that's what matters," he said calmly. Emily nodded. "We couldn't have done it without you," she said sincerely. Ryan took a deep breath and looked around at the grateful faces of the people surrounding him. For the first time in years, the weight of his past didn't feel as heavy. This rescue wasn't just a victory for the town, it was a turning point for Ryan. He had faced his fears and come out stronger on the other side. The storm had finally passed and the sea was beginning to calm. The rescued tourists and crew members were being checked over by the medical team at the harbor. People wrapped in blankets sipped on warm drinks, trying to regain some warmth. The harbor, though quieter now, was alive with activity as everyone focused on ensuring the survivors were okay. The rescue was over. Everyone was safe. As he walked through the crowd of grateful townspeople, he noticed Emily approaching him with a blanket in hand. "You're still soaking wet." "Here, take this," she said, handing him the blanket. Ryan accepted it with a faint smile. "Thanks, Emily," he said, his voice tired but warm. Draping the blanket over his shoulders, he found a spot on the harbor's stone steps and sat down. Emily joined him, and for a while they both silently watched the sea. The damp air from the rain mixed with a cool, gentle breeze, offering a moment of peace. Breaking the silence, Emily asked, "Ryan, why did you leave your career? The way you handled everything tonight. It felt so natural, like you'd never stop doing this." Ryan sighed deeply and gazed out at the horizon. He was quiet for a moment, gathering his thoughts before speaking. "Years ago, I was a rescue officer in the Coast Guard. I was responsible for saving lives. But during one mission, things went wrong. A powerful storm hit. A boat crashed against the rocks and we lost several people. I managed to save a few, but I couldn't save them all. I blamed myself for every life lost that night. Even though I did everything I could, it wasn't enough. I couldn't carry the weight of that guilt, so I walked away from the job." Emily listened intently. His voice still carried the pain of that night. She nodded quietly but couldn't hide the hint of frustration in her eyes. "Ryan," she said gently but with a firm undertone, "I understand what happened that night. But it seems to me like you've been punishing yourself for too long. Tonight, your leadership and skills were undeniable. Didn't you see how much people trusted you? By blaming yourself, you've only made that night's pain even heavier." Ryan was silent for a moment, taking in her words. There was truth and sincerity in her gaze. He knew she was right, but it was still hard to fully accept. "Maybe you're right," he finally said. "But some wounds take a long time to heal." Emily leaned closer, her voice soft but encouraging. "Even if the wounds never fully close, you can still rebuild. You were a hero to this town tonight. The respect and trust they have for you is real. It's time to use your talents not just for yourself but for others." Ryan tilted his head slightly and smiled. "And this is where you come in, huh?" he asked with a hint of playful sarcasm. Emily's expression turned serious. "Exactly. My father's project needs a leader. We're developing plans to protect the coast, preserve marine life, and improve public safety. You have the experience and vision to guide it. You also have a strong connection with the townspeople. You're the best person for the job." Ryan took a moment to process her words. He hadn't expected this. For years he had lived a quiet, isolated life, keeping his distance from everyone. But the events of the past few hours had opened a new path, one he hadn't considered before. Maybe Emily was right. "You really want me to lead this project?" he asked, his eyes reflecting both surprise and curiosity. Emily nodded confidently. "Yes. I don't think I'll find anyone better than you. You proved that today. The people trust you and you can lead them. If this town is going to continue living in harmony with the sea, it will be because of a leader like you." Ryan's gaze slowly shifted from Emily back to the sea. He smiled faintly. For the first time in years he felt a glimmer of hope for the future. Maybe it was finally time to forgive himself and start anew. Still, doubts lingered in Ryan's mind. "Emily," he said slowly, his eyes never leaving the sea. "My past isn't exactly spotless. Will people really want me as a leader responsible for the town's safety? What if I make another mistake? I've lived with that fear for years." Emily leaned in slightly and smiled gently, her voice both kind and resolute. "Ryan, the people here already trust you. What you saw today proved that. In the middle of the storm, they were looking to you for guidance. You were their beacon of hope. Yes, you've made mistakes in the past, but now you have a chance to turn things around. This project isn't just about infrastructure or buildings. It's about protecting lives." A moment of silence passed as Ryan nodded thoughtfully. Emily continued, "This project won't just benefit this town, it'll improve the safety of other coastal communities in the area too. The locals might not fully understand that right now, but we do. We need to make these changes to keep people safe, and you're the one who can make that happen." Ryan took a deep breath. He no longer wanted to retreat into the shadows of his past. "You're right," he said at last. "If I don't do this, I'll never find peace within myself. All right, I'll do it. I'll lead the project." Emily's face lit up with a smile. "That's amazing. We're going to make a great team. And this project is the perfect opportunity for you to start fresh," she said enthusiastically. Ryan took over the project in no time. His first step was to establish a local Coast Guard team. He gathered experienced people who knew the sea's dangers well and recruited both young volunteers from the town and professional experts from outside. Together they began an intensive training program. Comprehensive plans were developed for rescue operations, coastal protection, and maintaining the balance of marine life. Under Ryan's leadership, the project advanced rapidly. New safety infrastructures were built, secure navigation routes were mapped out for boats, and early warning systems for storms were implemented. Although the townspeople were initially skeptical of the project, they gradually began to trust it thanks to Ryan's dedication and hard work. Within a year, the project garnered attention not just in the town, but across other coastal regions. Regional authorities and the media highlighted it as a model initiative. Ryan and his team were invited to conferences and meetings to share their success. Efforts were even underway to implement similar projects in other coastal towns and cities. One day, Emily was invited to speak about the project on a major television network. During the interview, the host praised the project and asked Emily to share more about the leadership behind it. "The biggest credit goes to the man who took over the project, Ryan Blake," Emily said with a warm smile. "He has become a symbol of trust for the people of this town. Without his leadership, we wouldn't have come this far. I have never regretted putting my faith in him." Ryan, who was sitting at a cafe near the harbor, watched the broadcast with the townspeople gathered around him. As the host continued with words of praise, the crowd turned to Ryan and broke into applause. "Here's our hero," someone shouted. Ryan smiled faintly. But this time, There was no trace of shame or guilt in his expression. He could feel it, his life had started to reshape itself, and he was finally beginning to make peace with his past. A short while later, Emily arrived at the cafe. She walked over to Ryan, her eyes shining as she smiled. "See? It's not just the town anymore, now the whole region is thanking you," she said cheerfully. Ryan gave a small shrug, smiling softly. "For me, it's always been about keeping the people here safe. But getting this much recognition feels strange," he admitted. Emily tilted her head and gave him a knowing look. "Don't let it feel strange. You've earned it, Ryan. You save lives. And now, you're not letting your past control you anymore." Ryan took a deep breath and turned his gaze toward the sea. The water was calm and peaceful now. He felt the same within himself. "Maybe rebuilding your life is the toughest rescue mission of all," he said with a gentle smile. Emily followed his gaze, her voice soft. "Yeah, but this time you're not doing it alone." Ryan absorbed her words, feeling the truth behind them. He was no longer alone. A new path had opened in his life, a future strengthened by the people around him. With the support of the town, Emily, and the team he had built, they were moving forward together toward a brighter future. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring and captivating stories. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like and share your thoughts in the comments. Check out more of our videos by clicking the recommendations at the end of the screen. Your support means the world to us. Thank you.